3, 2, 1, starting. Welcome to our board meeting for the second quarter of 2026. I call the meeting of the Board of Directors of Redox OS to order. When I state your name, please acknowledge your presence. I'm Ron Williams, I'm present. Jeremy Solar.
Present.
Matthew John Roberts.
Present.
Okay, and Alberto hopefully will join us at some point, but we will move ahead. We have a quorum. Jeremy, do you want to continue with cameras on or do you want cameras off?
We can turn cameras off to save bandwidth.
Okay, the minutes from the previous board meeting have been provided to you. Are there any corrections? If there are no corrections, the minutes are approved as distributed. For the 2025 financials, I don't have them ready for review yet. I still have to set up an accounting system and get the data entered, but haven't made any progress on that yet. So I haven't been very available the last several months, and that's my rather lame excuse. It's still an objective. It's not critical for our tax reporting or anything like that, but it would be good to get it done. Any questions or concerns before we move on? Can I get a motion to discuss the updates to the 2026 budget?
Moved.
Seconded.
We currently have $19,100 in net cash. We have about about $1,000 in various other accounts, including some Bitcoin, some Ethereum, and a little bit of money at Teespring. We also have $2,200 in USDC. We don't currently have a way of withdrawing crypto. So if a large crypto donation is received, it will take some time before we can access it. Our monthly income, I think, is roughly $900, but I have not been able to log into Chase yet to confirm that. The deposits are flowing directly into our bank account. But once I resolve the technical issues with Chase, I will verify that number is correct. Current monthly expenses are around $3,100, and we have around $7,000 in Summer of Code funding commitments already allocated, but the work is not yet completed. We have enough cash right now, combined with income, to last us until roughly the beginning of November. Since our last meeting, we've added the following financial commitments. Matthew is receiving $1,100 per month over the course of 6 months, starting the work period started in May. So we've made two payments on that. And the total commitment is $6,600. Akshit was awarded one of our RSOC projects worth a total of $5,500. And Hoya Ra 1 was awarded our second RSOC project worth a total of $5,100. These amounts are included in the cash flow calculations that I just discussed. And Jeremy has committed to providing $5,100 from past donations prior to the nonprofit board. taking responsibility for donations to cover the second RSOC project, and that's if needed. We will sort that out when the cash is required, and that should give us enough cash to finish the year with at least a positive net cash. But we are spending significantly more this year than we are raising in terms of cash coming into the nonprofit itself. These expenditures were approved by the board via discussion on matrix. Are there any concerns regarding the approval of these expenditures before we consider them formally adopted? If there's no concerns, the funding for Matthew, Akshat, and Hoya Ra 1 is, as described, is approved, and Jeremy will provide $5,100 from past donations if needed. Regarding the AI policy and developer certificate of origin, can I get a motion to discuss these?
Moved.
Seconded.
Jeremy has recommended and we have adopted an AI policy, which is now included on the contributing.md page. The developer certificate of origin from developercertificate.org is also now required certification for all contributions. These policies were agreed to and adopted by the board via matrix. Are there any concerns regarding the approval of these policies? If there are no concerns, the AI policy, I'll give you some time. If there's no concerns, okay, the AI policy and requirement for a certificate of origin are approved and adopted. Are there any questions about the AI policy or the certificate of origin before we move on? Any questions about the budget? Okay. Can I get a motion to discuss fundraising?
Moved.
Seconded.
So our ability to increase donations to the Redox OS organization itself have not produced much in the way of results. We have been successful with funding for projects by NLNet. We have two active NLNet funded projects running right now, and a third larger one, much larger, has just been approved. The capability-based security project is making good progress. This project was designed and planned around 4LDO2's technical recommendations, suggestions about what he felt would be a good fit for him. Ibuki was brought onto the project, and Ibuki has been doing a lot of the programming work under 4LDO2's guidance. I would say we're a little bit behind schedule. 4LDO2 was hoping to get quite a bit done in April, May, and leading up to June. His availability has been more limited than expected. So his focus has been on designing the key elements and recommending the necessary changes to the representation of capabilities and the supporting changes to the kernel. Ibuki has been doing the implementation. I'll get into that a bit more, but we'll probably ask for an extension for the capabilities project. But along with that, we made a proposal to NLNet for a follow-up grant for Ibuki, and they instead, NLNet instead gave us permission to increase the scope of the capability-based security project to support further work over the course of the next several months. We haven't made the request for that additional scope yet, but hopefully we will be doing that fairly soon. The ring buffers project has completed the main architecture challenge of providing a ring buffer API for schemes. There's several other architectural challenges, including improvements to the async driver support and direct switching to bypass the scheduler. So that work was planned for LDO to do in April and May. He had an unexpected opportunity at the university, really a fantastic opportunity. So we're going to go back to NLNet and ask for more time for that project, hopefully, at least through the end of August. And I'm looking at ways that we can offload some of that work. I need to coordinate with him when he's available to see what we can do there. A new project has been approved. It's called Virtualized Redox, and it's sort of a broad umbrella of work related to running Redox in a VM, acting as a safe virtualized OS, a sort of a container particularly for microservices, but for web services and web hosting in general. So the budget for that project is 50,000 euros. We're currently looking at splitting it between 4 people. Anad will be doing network improvements. MJ will be doing work on VirtIO FS, which will allow the containerized Redox to present a host file system of whatever kind, ext4 or whatever, can be presented directly in Redox for reading and writing, and it will be, at least in principle, it will be safe to write files either from Redox or from Linux simultaneously, and that should, based on the capabilities of VirtIO FS, that should be safe to share files between Redox OS and the host live. We are planning POSIX compliance work and WASI support, WASM support and testing to be done by RNNAs. And I was hoping to do Redox FS work. We still have to do some more detailed work on the budget to find out who's doing what. MJ has suggested that he would like to do some additional virtualization work outside of just VirtIO FS. So I'll be catching up with him and seeing what we want to shift around in the budget. So that project has the green light. We can officially announce it, and we can officially start work on it. There will be a memorandum of understanding that we need to sign for that with NLNet, but in principle, there should be no issues with the budget going forward. NLNet is taking a break from accepting new projects, specifically development projects. They do have some other funding for different areas of work, but the one that's most appropriate for us, which is the NGI Zero Commons program, that one is coming to an end. So they're not accepting any new applications for that specific program. They're going to do a retrospective, a review of how that program has worked and what they can do better going forward. And they're just about to set off on a new program called Open Internet Stack, which covers everything from the cloud hardware through the entirety of the stack to the client computers. So the first theme fund within that, so similar to what NGI Zero Commons is related to NGI Zero as an overall program, the first theme fund is called Restack, and the focus is on creating that stack. They have $7 million in funding over 4 years, to the best of my understanding. They're looking for projects very similar in size to the NGI Zero grants that we have been receiving. So that's very exciting. You know, I don't think the pause in funding will hurt us, and I'm going to try and give them my own perspective. There are certain aspects of NLNet funding that have been challenging for Redox, so I'm going to try and let them know what I think could be better for their overall program, but specifically what could be better for Redox itself. And they have their own constraints, so I'm going to try and put it in the context of their constraints. Next point on funding is that I had an action item to ensure that our donors' names are kept up to date on the website. I have not done that, so I need to work with Willnode to see if we can create some sort of a mechanism to update the donors' names to show people who are Patreon or donor box donors. I had an action item to contact Vitalik Buterin, who is the creator of Ethereum. He funds open source projects. He has, shortly after our board meeting where we discussed this, he announced that he is going to be funding privacy tech. He set aside 45 million US in Ethereum coin donations. They have started the program and some of the money has been allocated, but only a small part of it. They have a very strange way of determining what projects get approved. They have two separate mechanisms. They're both a form of open public voting, but one of them uses a sort of betting market kind of an approach to figure out which projects are likely to be the most valuable. And the other one uses a square root voting system. So you get a certain number of votes. And if you vote, 9 times in favor of one project, that only counts as 3 votes. So very interesting kind of approaches to how they choose their projects. I'm not 100% clear on how to add your project to the list. So I'm going to work with Ribbon and see if we can figure something out to get our name in there and hopefully make enough noise that that people vote for us, whichever mechanism they use for voting. Are there any questions or concerns about that?
No, but I do have, I think we should follow up with the Rust Foundation too.
Okay.
They, if you recall, they had the program they initially chose, Rust LS, to be, I don't remember exactly what it was, but they announced it during the last RustConf, and Ernest may know more about it. I saw a Reddit comment from one of the members of the Rust Leadership Council saying, and I quote, "Redox is a bit outside of scope for the Rust project's funding team and maintainer fund, but there are some exciting announcements on the horizon that might be quite relevant to projects like Redox, so stay tuned." And we may want to reach out privately to find out what that means.
Okay. And do you know roughly the date that that comment
That
was
was
made?
6 days ago. I will send a link in
Thanks.
the nonprofit channel.
So I will follow up with Ernest, and I'm going to be at RustConf this year. I'm covering the cost myself because I'm traveling to see friends at the same time.
Okay.
But I have a 5-minute time slot to present. They call it a video demo, so I'm assuming that they're looking for us to provide a video rather than slides. But I would like to work on that with you and with Ribbon to. I want to talk a little bit about the community and how the community has grown, but I also want to talk a lot about all of the important infrastructure changes that we've made, and give a snazzy looking demo.
Sure.
But it's only a 5-minute window, so we'll need to be quick.
Yeah. It will be a good time. Last time I was caught up practicing. I didn't have as much time to network. If I were to recommend anything, it would be to try to meet with the people who work for the Rust Foundation and talk to them about funding specifically for Redox. And they have to be aware of how much of a boost it could be for both of us, for the Rust Foundation as well. The Redox video is still the #1 video from RustConf of all time in terms of views on their YouTube channel. So I hope there's something we could do there, because they did just pick up another big funder, OpenAI. I think they're donating. They're now a platinum member of the Rust Foundation. And that is some specified amount that I can look up, but if I recall, it was somewhere around 100,000 a year for that level. Okay, it's even more, 325,000 per year.
I think we could
So
probably spend that.
we could. One thing I'm proud of is that I think for the amount of money we're spending, we are getting a lot back out of it. So it's really impressive to be spending around 30,000 a year and have this much work happening all at the same time. I think this is the fastest Redox has ever grown, and we're going to be completing some very important things soon that will make it grow even faster.
Yes, the community is really tremendous. The love we get from the people who are on the project, and the the quality of contributions we're getting is really amazing. And if you go, for example, if you go on Phoronix, where the comment sections are notoriously negative, there's always somebody saying, we're really happy with the way the Redox guys are just heads down doing their work, and not spending their time arguing with people. It's an exciting project. People are defending us even though
Yeah.
they're not part of the community directly. So the feeling out there, I think we have a lot of value to the Rust community overall, and to the OS community as well.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments, questions, concerns about fundraising?
Just the one from me.
Yes.
Regarding the listing the donation names of people on the website, do they have an option of remaining anonymous?
So the names are entered when you make the donation. You type whatever name you want. I think we have one legacy donor who his name is just Space, and Jeremy has consistently put as the under the list of donors just somebody named Space, like the space character. So
Yeah, this
um,
comes from people on Patreon who selected the option of putting their name on the website. So no other, you'd have to select that. You can donate through Patreon without selecting that option.
I don't know if there's an equivalent from Donor Box. I haven't looked into it.
No, and it's something, honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it drove any donations. I'm not sure if it would change anything if we removed the tiers on Patreon. And it would probably be good for us to investigate Donor Box and Wise and PayPal and see if we need to list all of them all the time. I know Donor Box, we've gotten some large contributions, and it has lower fees than Patreon. But Wise seems to have the lowest fees so far and the widest international support.
Yes, as multi-currency.
Yeah, so we may want to reinvestigate the fees on all of these. Patreon used to be a lot more popular than it is now.
Yeah.
It would
So
be good for us to look into how to grow it, but I don't think the tiers are necessarily driving any donations.
could we use our social media to reach out and see what people think?
Yeah,
Maybe do
sure.
a poll or something to decide if we want to keep the tiers, decide if we want to keep posting people's names. I know that I occasionally get emails from people who are wondering why their name is not on the list of donors.
Yeah,
But it's rare.
It's it would probably even be easier if it was something that had to be manually done rather than have a list that is managed. And because Patreon, the way that I grabbed that data was a very manual process. And so yeah, I would honestly have rather done it person by person and just add them to the list when they requested it rather than have to get the list out of Patreon and then hack it up so that it could be fed into a program to put it into HTML format.
They do have a query interface now for donor lists, but I have not looked into it at all.
Yeah, that may help. If it's automated, though, I want it to be fully automated. I just want to have it running once a day or whatever to pull it directly through the API, but I never had time to set that up.
Yeah. So I'll discuss with Willnode, and maybe he can find a way to make that happen. I don't know if there's going to be an issue with Donor Box. I'm a little concerned about posting names from Patreon, but not names from Donor Box. And especially if we add Wise, there's definitely no mechanism to get donor names from Wise. So we'll have to at least have an option of adding names manually.
Honestly, I would drop the tier in Patreon, and then I would just say we will add names manually.
Okay.
Reach out via donate@redoxos.org if you want your name added to this list, because it's easier for us to add them one by one and then to semi-automate the extraction from Patreon.
Yeah, that sounds like a better option to me, because then you know that anyone who does get listed is someone who wants to get listed.
Mhm.
So we're not violating anyone's privacy.
Right.
I'm just making a note.
Yeah, it would be good to refactor the tiers in Patreon and see what else we could do to drive up the donations.
We did in 2025, we had a specific situation where there was conversation in the community about, in the general room, about Summer of Code. And that triggered someone to donate enough money to cover a Summer of Code project directly.
Right.
So this year I tried to highlight the fact in the news and announcements about Summer of Code. I tried to highlight the fact that, you know, we're supporting these projects out of past donations. We really need funding for Summer of Code going forward. Did not seem to get the same response, but I think
Yeah.
the community is probably a key area that you know, it's a bit of a missed opportunity for us. We need to work with the community, and because we have people who are in high school all the way up to people who retired 10 years ago in our community. So not everyone's going to be able to afford to donate, but there certainly are people who can afford to donate that be good to ask once in a while in the community.
Right.
And
Well,
we need to do more in our monthly report as well. The first paragraph, I think, has just sort of become template now, and
yeah,
we
it's
need to smash that.
yeah, it's good we listed in every report, but I worry that the more times we have the same thing show up, the more likely it just gets skimmed over.
Yeah.
People are reading it and not clicking on those links. Wikipedia always manages to fund itself, and the way it does it is with injecting requests for donations everywhere.
Yes.
And I think that may be a good thing to try, and stressing that this organization can only exist and the project can only exist if it continues to get funding. So yeah, we could do that. We know what deficit we have for this year. We could try to set up a funding drive. And I think for specific projects, it can be interesting too, because these are things that people may feel a lot better to fund a specific thing rather than just a general slush fund for every whatever Redox is working on. They may be more willing to fund an RSOC project. So if we could set up funding for those specifically, that may help.
Yeah. So we've got the build is one key thing that we could ask people to fund. The you know, keeping the lights on is another key thing. You know, and keeping the lights on and running the community, and the Summer of Code projects. That's really, you know, pretty much the entirety of our expenses at this point. So, you know, making a push for each of those things individually, not overwhelming people with all of them at once, I think would be good.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we could we could definitely do a better job. It's something we should add as an action item, to try and have some funding drive, maybe for one of the RSOC projects that are planned but not started yet.
Yeah, so we both our RSOC projects are underway. In the past, we have had a nod as a summer of project, summer of code project, but he'll be doing NLNet funded work this time around, I think. So the next opportunity really would be in March to focus on RSOC.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. For this year, I still plan to do another $30,000 donation near the end of the year.
Great.
And we can track how much has been spent out of the original bulk donation. Yeah, I think our goals for funding pretty much are to get the community to pay equivalent to their interest. I think the community is underutilized, and to pick up some business donations, because those would be on the level where we could actually hire full-time personnel at competitive costs.
Mm-hmm.
And so we could do a lot more with larger donations on the level that the Rust Foundation is getting. And the Rust Foundation has memberships for businesses. We might consider that. We might consider doing memberships. As a 501c4, we are not a business league, but we have the opportunity of doing fundraising using those kinds of designs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall if the Rust Foundation is a 501c6.
It's a 6, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so they are a business league, and so they are set up specifically to have businesses join as members, and then to achieve some goal that all the businesses are aligned on. For us, we'll have to consider how to attract business donations, because I think that's the only way we could get the level that we need. Unless we're talking about finding some incredibly wealthy people, like
Vitalik.
like that, to take a risk on Redox.
Yeah,
And,
so I have some thoughts on doing more technical content for our news, and using that as a means to push things, where we present to businesses as in the form of a news post. We present to businesses, here's what we're doing, here's our plans, here's how everything is organized, here's why it's important to you.
sure.
And then trying to communicate with the businesses themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else to add there?
That's all from me. Matthew, do you have anything else?
No, I'm happy.
Can I get a motion to discuss development activities?
Moved.
Seconded.
Okay, so we are in theory working towards release. There is no sort of specific cutoff of here's when the release is happening, or a mandatory feature set that, you know, when we get X, Y, and Z done, then we release. So we need to come up with a sort of a glide slope to figure out where we stand relative to a release. We have a tracking issue. I'll get Matthew to talk a bit about that in a minute. there's a few important items that need to be well tested. And we want to make sure that the release is as stable as possible. The last release was a bit rushed because I was trying to ensure that I had a new release to announce at RustConf a couple years ago. And so we had some issues. We want to make sure that we are as clean as possible, but at the same time, we are still pre-alpha, and I don't think we need to be embarrassed about having a few things that are broken. We would just like to make it the system as usable right out of the box as we possibly can. So there's a bad file error that has been showing up in a number of different circumstances. I don't know if anybody is actively working on that. It seems to be a race condition because it's, for example, if you use the search box in the file manager, it will eventually give you a bad file number.
So Ron, just to interject for a moment, I have seen this kind of thing in X11 a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it revolves around opening huge amounts of file descriptors in a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that we've seen this kind of race condition in the past when special file descriptors have not been moved to the upper file descriptor table.
Okay. Yeah.
They can end up taking the same file descriptor number as other lower level file descriptors, such that some of the POSIX interfaces get basically, there are race conditions where they believe that a certain file descriptor number points to a different file than it actually does.
Okay, that's all been rewritten, so you'll have to hook up with Ibuki and get all his stuff integrated, because that's all changed now. So file descriptors, files are opened into the correct table in the first place, and file descriptors are allocated in relibc.
Okay.
So it would be great to get that integrated soon. And Ibuki has laid out a sort of staged integration in the capability-based security room. You should have a look at that and work with him to start integrating that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. We also, I think, have an OOM bug that we want to address. So we had a race condition, and 4LDO2 fixed the race condition at the expense of some memory leakage. I think he wasn't in a position to go through and really figure out what the overall solution is. But I think it's related to number of tasks created. I think maybe Matthew can update us on that as well. I'm going to turn the floor over to you in a minute, Matthew. And regarding the build system, I have found the build system to be quite stable over the last while. Will Notice starting to turn his attention to the packaging system and the installer to make sure that those are really solid and stable for the release, and that they will survive for some number of months after the release. Our last release, 0.9, the packaging system was rewritten about 3 months later and was not compatible. So that created some issues with our new community members not understanding that. Okay, so Matthew, can you give us an update on the current state of the release and how you're managing it, and anything that you see as sort of key to getting the release done?
So we have a tracking issue, and I'll just put it up here. So yeah, there are a number of items on the tracking issue.
Can you post a link in the boardroom?
Okay. I don't have permission to post to the boardroom.
Oh, okay. I'll post it. Okay, what's the name of the issue?
I don't know. Hang on.
Can you post it in the nonprofit room and we can copy it over?
Yeah.
And we should adjust the permissions after the meeting.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to add some things. I noticed, at least with my local build, that Doom is not running anymore. I get
Yes,
a black
somebody
screen.
pointed that out a little while ago.
And that is probably the most critical issue to resolve.
It's hilarious that it is, but it is.
Yeah, there are major brownie points for that, aren't there?
Yeah.
So we have quite a number of things on the list. Personally, I think we need to wait for the whole capability thing to be merged, and
Yeah.
that should really add some more stability to the system in general. I would very much like to see the relibc 8664 CI test to be stable and reliable, but don't think that's a blocking issue for a release. It's something that's not really visible for users, obviously. Willnode's done quite a lot of work on even porting XFCE, which is interesting. So we've got something there to show for alternative desktops. But yeah, I don't think there's really much that we should be adding to the list. The one little thing that I'd like to see fixed was back when we used to have the bug for double characters being output to the terminal. Willnode managed to fix it, but when he fixed it, he also introduced a new bug which affects the login screen. When you type in, say, root, usually you'd be able to hit tab and it'll go to the password box, but now it literally gives out a tab space in the root box.
Okay. That
when
makes
you
sense.
try to log in, then it obviously it thinks root is the wrong name because it's got a tab in it. But that's a minor issue that I'd like to see addressed.
Have you created an issue for that?
Not yet, no.
Yeah, make sure you do. It should be easy to fix. I think what happened is that all of the control characters no longer create, they no longer have character output. But tab is a special character, so it is probably getting handled, and the tab is not being handled as a like UI control character anymore.
Yeah, I did make Willnode aware of it, but
there's a text input event, I believe, and there's a key event, and now the key event no longer provides the characters, and the text input event does.
Yeah, so I think we need to kind of make sure that we are doing exactly the same thing that happens on Linux with magic keystrokes and stuff like that. Because I think Willnode has had to change item by item character by character to figure out which was a key event and which was a input character.
Yep.
And I'm not sure that we exactly match Linux.
In this case, the orbital login screen is using orb client directly and probably hand parsing the events itself, whereas most of the other applications are using winit, which then does the parsing of the orbital events into keys. And I would trust what we've done with the winit stuff a lot more than the custom parsing in orb login. So we just go into orb login and adjust it to ignore the tab character or to correctly handle it.
How hard would it be to port login to winit?
It's I looked at this before. I was going to port the launcher and the login screen. And right now, winit just did not have easy ways, especially when it's wrapped behind of iced and libcosmic. There's not really an easy way to create system interfaces, ones that are always on top, always retrieve focus, and manipulate their window in that way. So we need for the login screen, we need a full screen, always on top window. And then for the launcher, we need a transparent, always on top, and manually positioned window. And because Wayland does not really have manual positioning, on Wayland systems, you have to use a different protocol called Layer Shell. And libcosmic has built out special support for Layer Shell so that in Cosmic, the panel and the login screen and so forth can position themselves and put themselves on the right layer. But there's no such thing built into winit, or at least not exposed in iced, which would then be exposed in libcosmic. So it was just some missing primitives for window management that were needed to put the login screen in the right place or to put the launcher in the right place. But it would make things a lot easier if they were Cosmic applications. Especially for the launcher, it could look a lot nicer.
So should we set that as a goal for the release, or should we just have Wilnode fix whatever he can for now? And,
I mean, this is almost certainly a one-line change to fix tab being inserted into instead of going to the next text box.
Okay.
So I would not, I think we have more important things to focus on. And another thing I would like to add to the list would be GTK on orbital, because Wilnode got it so far that it's really close to the point where we could then start working on WebKit GTK and Firefox using GTK3 on top of orbital instead of nested inside of X11. X11 comes with a whole bunch of other challenges that we've had, mainly around Unix sockets and shared memory and other interfaces that weren't 100% before. Now they're much better, but still they're not quite up to the state that orbital is in. Orbital is in a much better state than X11.
Okay.
So regarding browsers, do we want to have a browser as part of the tracking issue, or just GTK would be fine?
Well, NetSurf is fine for now, because so far we haven't really been able to get any of the browsers to run even inside X11, even before we had some of the regressions we've had. I was never really able to load a JavaScript-enabled web page. So I think it will take a long time. But the focus, all I'm saying is the focus should be on running it inside of Orbital instead of inside of X11. So we can work on our GTK3 port to Orbital. We can maybe port other GTK3 applications as we see fit. We can try to port WebKit GTK. but I wouldn't expect it to be working and to be bundled in the image for a while.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, what do you think would make a good sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Example to port for a GTK app. A good
There's
showcase.
so many GTK apps. I think some of the emulators that we haven't ported yet, most of the game emulators we have ported have been using SDL. There are some other ones that have Qt and GTK interfaces, and we just haven't touched those yet because those ports were not established. Now that we have GTK, we're even further ahead for Qt too, because a lot of the things that we learned from porting GTK will let us port Qt. And there are so many emulators and games that utilize those toolkits too, so we could choose something to port. But yeah, the browser is the ultimate demonstration.
Okay, Matthew, so are you updating the tracking issue with all these items?
I will be.
Okay, great. And how has it been, if you're available, Matthew, if you're not still making notes, how has it been trying to work with the tracking issues to track releases? Were there things that we could be doing better in terms of managing our glide slope to get things on the list ticked and move on?
I'll be honest, I've not been very hands-on with this issue myself, and I've always found it difficult to try to organize people. So I can say that Willnode's been excellent. He's always quick to respond. So whenever I've asked for feedback, I've usually done it in a general way, and then Willnode usually chips in.
So then I would like to suggest that that you and Willnode sort of monitor the tracking issue and identify things that the two of you can try and resolve, or try and highlight, try and narrow down, that kind of thing. And then areas where you would like to get help. And we can ask for Jeremy to jump in here and there. We can maybe ask Bjorn 3 to jump in here and there as well.
Yeah, I would say my primary focus would be that we have something that can install on real hardware and update on real hardware indefinitely. And in the future, we are going to have more API breakages and ABI breakages. But I'm not certain that what we have right now can complete that whole life cycle yet, that whole software life cycle of installation and then maintenance with updates. So that's the case we should be testing and see what is broken in that case. A lot of the other things in the tracking issue are nice to have, but I don't think necessary. For instance, having the browsers there, or having Raspberry Pi working, or having any testing working, it's nice to have. But we just need something that can install and run on a real computer and update. The XFCE or mate images, I would just strike that off the list. Some of the other things should be moved to other issues. That doesn't mean they're not high priority. That just means that when we deliver a binary image as a release, it's not a necessary piece of it.
So focus on making sure that we can install on real hardware, boot, get to the installer, and then or not the installer, but get to the package manager and download packages.
Hopefully, yes. And then all the other problems we can fix with updates.
Okay, excellent.
And what things I would strike off of this list, and again, I'm not saying they're not high priority, especially the relibc tests. I think that's incredibly high priority because that affects our ability to make changes that will fix relibc in the future and ensure that there aren't regressions. But the relibc tests are not part of the image that we deliver. The Raspberry Pi 3B plus storage driver, I don't think it's necessary. Multi-core support, I'd be happy to just disable multi-core if we continue to have problems. The tests on KMU, VirtualBox, and real hardware, those make sense to me. Better debugging during boot, maybe not, depending on what our real hardware testing reveals. Ensure that current performance is better. That's something we can do, but ultimately we have to have a release. If it boots and it runs at a reasonable performance, it doesn't matter how it compares to the previous release in terms of us making a release. It just matters more for us considering what regressions we need to fix. Improve AML parsing, that's something that has to be evaluated based on real hardware testing. Fix WebKit GTK3, port Firefox, those are unnecessary. Those are things that can happen later. Move to upstream Rust, again, that's an internal thing. Get the GUI installer working on Linux. I'm not entirely sure what that means. I'm guessing that means to be able to install Redox to a drive from inside of Linux. It's not necessary for us to deliver a release. XFCE or mate images, we can do those anytime. They don't have to block a release. Regression testing, it has been such a long time since our last release that I'm not even sure it would be valid to do regression testing. And this applies also to the performance testing issue listed above. The last release, the code has changed so much. The ABI has changed. We started doing dynamic linking of everything. If we found a regression, the mechanism to resolve it would not be to look at the previous release or to bisect from the previous release because so many things have changed since then. Verify if contain is working. It would be nice, but again, it's not part of our base image at this time. Although I do hope that in the future we can containerize desktop applications. Support for running in VM on Mac, not necessary. And release notes, yes. That would be nice, but I'm also totally fine to just link to all of our monthly things and say, hey guys, a lot of stuff has changed. And maybe have some highlights. It has been years. So that's why I would knock out a lot of this list. That doesn't mean they're not important. So I would move them to a different issue. Maybe tracking our software maintenance health or something like that. Like these are things we need to be able to do, especially regression testing. These are things we should be able to do with our daily images, right? So if we have more regular releases, then we'd be able to do more regular regression testing against stable releases, and probably we detect some issues a lot earlier. So yeah, the focus definitely for me is just to have an image that can install on real hardware. And it doesn't have to install on everything, and it just has to be good enough that we can get some systems installed, and those can be updated to get improvements in the future.
I do think we need to test thoroughly on as many VMs as we can. Certainly, KEMU and VirtualBox. I think VM on Apple, you know, I would love to have it, but it's Arch, it's ARM, so not sure how realistic it is. But there's lots of hardware that we're not going to run well on, and having the VM is the alternative for the people that want to use the system.
Sure. Yeah, the testing of the current image, I think, is very important, and
Yeah,
the
and
priority. Testing in VMs on real hardware, and testing that the applications that we bundle are working as we expect. The installer, especially the package manager, being priorities because they deliver the updates for all the other packages.
Are we still, for Cosmic, are we still using the nightly or the master?
It's
And
back to the master, yeah.
should we consider just choosing a release tag or something so that we don't have surprises?
There will be another tag later today.
Okay.
So we could use that tag. We don't have any patches, and Cosmic is not planning to do any. There's one more change happening at the lower level, but it should not affect anything related to Redox. We're not updating Winit, or soft buffer, or any of the lower level things that may cause issues. Or iced. We're just adding frosted glass as an optional effect, which should only affect Wayland systems. So for the foreseeable future, I don't see anything that would cause breakage on Redox going into the master branches. And in general, it's been easier to have it on the master branch because then we actually do detect the regressions in support on Redox. When it's pinned to a tag, we don't have an early warning system of when things stop building on Redox.
Yeah, it's from the point of view of getting a release out the door, I'd prefer to work with a tag, but from the point of view of making sure that we're a stable platform, having things break early is better. Okay, maybe we should just, a week or two before the release, we'll just switch to a tag.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do.
Okay, anything else on the upcoming release? Okay, so few other things. So the capabilities project, as I mentioned, we have a bunch of stuff that is ready to integrate. I think Ibuki was doing a couple of other minor things. So there's a whole sequence of MRs that he has created, and I think we can sort of start from the top of his list and work down. But that will address a lot of the file descriptor race conditions and everything. When something belongs in the upper file table, it's just opened in the upper file table. And
that's good. Yeah, that temporary amount of time before it's duped up to the upper file table likely causes a lot of the issues that we're seeing with bad file descriptors.
And the new capability representation is hopefully the one that we will be using going forward. So it has I don't actually know all the technical details, but it kind of is what the information is in the kernel is reflected in the relibc space as well. So I'm just going to leave it at that. So there's no like obvious benefits that would be visible at the application level, but this is the foundation that we'll be going forward with.
Yep.
Okay. I'm not sure what's going on with the ring buffers work. We do have ring buffers working between Redox FS and the disk drivers, but I don't know if that work has been published. So I will have to catch up with Ibuki and find out what the status is there. So we were not able to take full advantage of ring buffers combined with Redox FS because Redox FS is not designed for full asynchronous operation. I'm not sure what all of the issues are, but I think there would be issues with caching and that sort of thing that are more challenging than just having ring buffer communication. So we are not planning on solving all those issues with Redox FS in the ring buffers project. It would be nice to have the ring buffers crate being used, at least in certain areas of the system. And we should pick a couple of areas where we, for example, dev null, we could easily do a ring buffer.
Early on, I had recommended to do the audio driver.
Right. I think something that was done there. I don't recall exactly what, but we should catch up on that. Okay, so we need to invoice NLNet. Well, not invoice, but we need to make requests for payment from NLNet. They much prefer if the work is merged before we pursue payment. So I would like to see what we can do in terms of merging there, but I also don't want to disrupt anything within Redox. So we'll have to pick and choose where we merge the ring buffers work. We do have plans for ring buffers for the future, but it's not under the current scope as of today. Okay. The RSOC projects, the scheduler, so the EEVDF scheduler is written and working. The action is looking for anything further that can be optimized in terms of the scheduler's operation. He hasn't started working on how priorities impact system performance. And I know that for Linux, they got some really amazing usability and performance improvements out of tuning the EEVDF parameters. So we're hopeful that we can get some of that same kind of result. That is the next milestone for Action. And so it would be good to follow up with him and see how much of EEVDF has been merged, still needs to be merged, and get that in and working. So I will contact him and make sure that he's provided everything to you for that, or at least he's given you an update on where he stands with it. So the other RSOC, Huyara's other work, so his RSOC so far has focused on PTYD. PTY name now works where in the past, if you tried to get the terminal name, each time it would give you a different name. And it's now fixed where you get the same name consistently for your terminal. This is based on standard in, I think, standard in or standard out, something like that. But TTY name will work for any TTY file descriptor. It doesn't know what your controlling terminal is. That's a different thing. So controlling terminal will be under the another NLNet project. And so I've written a design for controlling terminal that I think is going to work, and I'm going to try and work with Matthew to implement that as part of the virtualized Redox project. The rest of that RSOC project is around just generally looking for areas to improve POSIX compliance, that sort of thing. And there was a goal to make PTY performance much better, but there's just too much going on when a person types a character and you want to render it to the screen. It goes through many layers until it gets written to the frame buffer, and that was out of scope for this project. So we have to retune the project a little bit. Okay, so the next goal for him after we kind of wind up the PTY work is to look at implementing as much of libm as possible using Rust compiler built-ins. Okay, and then in terms of our overall POSIX compliance strategy, our OS tests and so on, Matthew, can you give us an update on that?
Sure. So I've been using Sorty's OS test suite. That's been fantastic. There are 86 headers in total in the latest POSIX standard. Only 58 of them actually have any reference to including either a whole header or part of that header. So I've sifted through all of those, and I'm confident that we're not importing or including any headers that shouldn't be there. Our previous meeting for the board meeting was sometime around January. So just as a comparison, in January we had about 3,500 tests passing, and we've now jumped up in June to over 4,300 tests passing. So we're making good progress. That's over 800 more tests that are passing. I've done quite a bit of work on ensuring that we don't have any namespace pollution. There's minor namespace pollution, usually due to some extensions to the POSIX standard. So we can split things out into bits headers to be able to show that they're behind certain include guards. And that's only minor work. Some of that is from the extensions, others is from depreciated POSIX APIs, so the older standards. And there was another one I was about to mention. No, it's gone. So yeah, those are the reasons why they need to be split out to prevent any namespace pollution. We've made good progress. Several contributors have been adding different things to improve our compliance. So the most recent, biggest addition is the spawn support. That's been a bit of a headache because I haven't been able to run an OS test run for about a week. But finally today, I managed to get one done. So Wilnode's been great. I've been highlighting some issues with him, and he's been able to work through the technical side of fixing why it didn't run. So we've got it running now, but there are some regressions regarding printing out relibc panics, which I'd really like to get sorted because they're really messing up the results. But on the whole, we've been going upwards. Also, I'd like to reiterate that probably safe to say that the Redox official stance on POSIX compliance is that we're not aiming for 100%, and not even Linux has 100%. But the guiding principle is if something can be implemented and we want to be compliant, then we should be. And the higher priority is to be able to port things. That's where most of the focus has been, be able to get things running. So yeah, I think that's where we are with POSIX compliance.
Can you talk a little bit about the problems that you're running into?
The biggest problems has been, well, the most recent one with the spawn work was to do with path handling. So Wilnode managed to figure that out. This is one of the reasons why I really want us to focus on getting the relibc CI into a good state, because I very heavily rely on that to be able to continue accepting merge requests so that we can be sure that we're not having any regressions. Unfortunately, when you're introducing new APIs, that's kind of difficult to ensure if they don't also add tests. So with Spawn in particular, they had tested it locally on Redox, but our CI wasn't working for Redox, and we haven't got Linux support for it. So our CI is working for Linux, but they haven't done it yet. But 4LDO2 said that he was happy for the Spawn work for Linux to be done in a follow-up MR because it was getting pretty big. But I'm really glad that's been merged now.
Are you still seeing the OOM problems that you were seeing?
That hasn't surfaced for a little while. My most recent run today, it did the tests during compilation. They did not freeze, but they stopped. So the VM was still responding, but the tests weren't progressing, so I needed to restart the VM several times. So yeah, that seems to be a regression. Previously, I would be able to run the entire compilation, and the longer it goes on, the slower it gets, which is why this run was just under 3 hours. But usually, if the whole thing runs in one go, it'll take around 6 hours because we run it natively on Redox OS, and I think that's a good thing because it acts as a stress test for the system, and it really highlights some issues that we need to resolve. So yeah, I'm glad we're able to run it natively on Redox rather than cross-compile.
And
Okay.
just for reference, Ron, running the whole suite on Linux probably only takes a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm convinced that Redox FS is the probably the largest bottleneck because it's single-threaded.
If I recall correctly, cross-compiling takes maybe 3 minutes to compile and about 10 minutes to run. Running natively on Linux takes about 5 minutes, just doing the whole test. And then compiling on Redox is extremely slow. And I believe most of that is because Redox FS is incredibly serialized. And this is another reason why it's so difficult to build the ring buffer support into it. It's serialized primarily because it was easier to reason about the copy on write functionality. So all of the transaction has to happen and be synced to disk, in addition to the Uber block being replaced before the next transaction can start. And every single disk read or write tries to do a transaction. Now, in the case of a read, it will not write anything out, but it will block all the other reads that could be happening until it's been completed. So that it's extremely inefficient, and something I was going to work on in the next version of Redox FS.
And the way the OS test is set up, the basic suite is around 1,000 tests. They're all literally small C files.
Mm-hmm.
And the include suite is around 3,000 tests. So that easily takes up the bulk of the time compiling natively on Redox.
Yep. I don't even think it's the compilation process. It's because the files are small, and I think most of it is just loading the binaries for the C compiler, because we don't have any page fault loading of executables right now. The entire executable gets loaded in every single time it gets called.
Yeah, and I remember Willnode looking into this, and he did make some adjustments, and he managed to reduce the amount that needs to be loaded, but it is still being loaded every single time. So we're talking like the basic, and for the include suite, that's over 4,000 invocations.
Yeah, for 4,000 tests and let's say 100 megabytes worth of compiler, that's 400 gigabytes of read that has to be done through the file system.
I think Willnode did some inode caching work as well, which hopefully has made a difference.
Yep.
Okay, so we've now gone on for an hour and a half, more or less, and I just wanted to get a quick update from you, Jeremy. What do you know about what's going on with the GPU work that Bjorn and the other person are doing, and is there any updates there?
Well, currently what we have is a reasonable part of the KMS piece of the DRM stack. So you can iterate through connectors and encoders in planes, and you can set properties on them. I believe you can do some mode setting with the Intel driver. And Orbital was ported to use this. The idea being that X11 and Wayland would be able to use the same interfaces. There are some problems with porting Wayland still. I think the major issue for us, and one that was kind of sidestepped by BSDs, is UDEV. So UDEV is an interface with the Linux kernel that things like libinput use to determine which input devices are available and certain properties about them. And on FreeBSD, this libinput is available, but it's like a completely different implementation of libinput. It's not the upstream project ported, it's just a re-implementation. And UDEV is also a re-implementation. So for Redox, it is one of two paths we'd have to take. We'd have to either re-implement the user space libraries of udev and libinput, or we have to replace their usage in the SmithA library and in Cosmic Comp, so that at the least we'd have one Wayland compositor that could run natively on Redox outside of Orbital, but just using the DRM interfaces to set up the frame buffer, and then using our own interface with input D in order to get input device information. So it is, I think the graphics side of it is kind of done if we want to continue on porting Wayland, which is what we kind of have to do if we want to move any further. We're going to have to focus on the input side.
Okay, so we're many months away still from having all that done. Are we months away from having Wayland support?
Technically, we have Wayland wrapped inside of Orbital, and the same way that we have X11. And I think that's sufficient for continuing work on Wayland, and the actual protocol is getting exercised. The user space, the toolkits, we can work on porting them. We can work on performance. There's a lot of things we can do with the current state, but in order for it to run natively on Redox outside of Orbital, it will have to use it will have to have some input framework, either replacing libinput entirely and providing a different implementation of it, or ripping out the libinput support in SmithA and writing some replacement for it. And I would probably be in favor of the second one because it seems like it would be the shortest path. Working inside of SmithA is not that difficult, but it would mean that we would not be able to port any other compositors that are using libinput.
Okay. All right. Anything else on development? Can I get a motion to discuss the other action items?
Moved.
Seconded.
So the following action items have been previously identified. If there's anything to report, let me know. So coordinating contributors, originally that was an action item on me to figure out how to use projects to coordinate with contributors. Matthew has been doing the most coordinating of people for the POSIX related work, and to some extent the issues tracking, the tracking issues. So do you have anything that you want to add specifically, Matthew, or just that you're going to keep working on that?
Yeah, I'll continue to work with anyone who's available to do that. We've had several contributors express interest, but some of them don't follow up on that interest. But some people have been doing good work recently.
Okay, and if you come up with any ideas on how we might do a better job of coordinating the contributors and making sure that people can jump in and not have to worry about stepping on toes, that sort of thing, that's much appreciated. Whatever you can think of.
There's probably some quality of life things we could do. Just for new contributors, it's quite difficult to set up a build of Redox and to work with it. So if we could consider, a while ago, maybe during our last meeting or afterwards, I don't recall, we had a list of items to resolve, and one of them was to set up binary packages by default.
Right.
That would significantly reduce the amount of time to build a Redox image.
Yeah.
And the first build time is going to be what it's going to be the first experience of any new contributor. If they actually want to build something and test it inside of Redox.
Yeah. Okay, so we should probably just have like an environment variable to I mean, we could just have a new user environment variable, because it's, you know, if somebody wants to build the whole system, we don't want to have to, we don't want to trick them into thinking they're building the whole system when they're not.
One way to do that then would be to have some mandatory setup rather than having a default. And it could be just something that runs when you first run make. If it hasn't been configured already, it will generate a config file for you, and it will ask you which image you want to build, what architecture you want to build, and do you want to build from source or from binary. And it could input those into the .config file for you.
That's a very good idea. Okay, can you create an issue for that, Matthew?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so our website is another action item I had to review the content and polish the website. Have not done that. The 2024-2025 financials, I still need to choose an accounting system and get all the information input. Okay, any other action items? Anything that anybody wants to raise at this time? Okay, I'd like to propose the following agenda for the next board meeting to take place no later than September 30th. Approval of the minutes for this meeting, report on fundraising, report on development, report on the action items, and is there any other business to discuss at this time? There being no other business, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Seconded.
Okay, it's moved and seconded that we adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the meeting's adjourned at, Jeremy, what time is it where you are?
It is 1:40 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.